Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we talk with Kathryn Starke, a reading consultant and author from Richmond, Virginia, about the many complex aspects of reading instruction and what motivates students to read. Without any further ado, Kathryn Starke.
Well, Kathryn, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. For those that don't have the privilege of knowing who you are, can you tell us a little bit about your role in education? Who are you, where are you from, and what do you do?
I am Kathryn Starke. I live in Richmond, Virginia, born and raised in Richmond, actually. I wanted to be an elementary school teacher my whole life. And so I had the honor and privilege to teach first, second, and third grade before I became a school reading specialist, then a district reading coach, then a literacy consultant. Now I get to travel to schools, from New York down to Charleston, out to LA to really help teachers teach reading. I am an author of children's books and educational materials, and I own an educational publishing company. But everything I do is reading and writing and elementary school based. That's why I am here, I believe.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. How I got to know you was through a program called Tackle Reading. And I think that is so powerful. And it's really engaging. But Kathryn, you've been engaging students like your whole educational journey. So would you just tell us a little bit about some of the earliest ways that you engage students, and then at the end tell us a little bit about Tackle Reading and what that involves?
So I am from the school of, you don't enjoy doing something, you're not going to do well at something if you're not motivated and excited. And when I was teaching second grade, I've always taught in inner city schools. And I was the first year teacher, all excited, got my class teaching second grade. And I realized that in my class, we had a problem that is not uncommon to a lot of school systems, which is that children are reading significantly below grade level and are expected to perform at grade level expectations, but reading significantly behind. And so very early on, I realized I had to come up with motivational, engaging, enticing, exciting ways to get my kids to learn content and learn to read. And so we threw in a lot of dance. I choreographed a lot of dance. I turned songs from the radio into songs to teach content. I told a lot of stories. Kids learn really well. Adults learn really well through stories. Anything that could really get kids wanting to learn. So they really didn't feel like this was just, a math lesson or a science lesson, but truly something that was exciting that would be a lifelong lesson. I believe that I kind of took my passion for motivation and excitement in sports and figured out how to bring those worlds together. I had the opportunity to be an author for the Washington Football Club, which happens to be like in my backyard, relatively speaking. And their training camp was in Richmond. And I saw how sports really motivated kids. I can tell someone to read for 20 minutes every day and they say, okay, but then like their favorite athlete in a jersey says it and they're like, oh, I'm really gonna do it. Now it makes sense. And so I wanted to captivate, that, really take that, capture it, and say, how can we make this happen? And so I created Tackle Reading as a book initially, full of inspirational stories, motivational tips from educators, from athletes, from celebs. And then I thought, I kind of want to bring this book to life. Like, what can I do with this book just beyond the book? And so the idea for a Tackle Reading event came up. And in my mind, I said, I'm going to, call the NFL and I'm going to tell them I want to do this event and everything's going to be great. And the people around me were like, okay, Kathryn, no one knows who you are. You can't just call the NFL. And I said, all right, well, I'll email some teams. And I emailed 15 teams on my own saying what I wanted to do, that I wanted to create a day to promote a love of literacy with a passion for football. Are you on board? Yes, 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 yes. Well, once you have 15 teams on your own and then you call the NFL, they listened to me. And so they have been amazing, and they have helped support this cause now for 5 years, through virtual assemblies, through real life assemblies. You guys were part of it this year with the Walter Payton Man of the Year from the Buffalo Bills. So that was huge that you guys made that happen. But we just want to continue to, you know, bring that motivation and that love of excitement, however it may be, to reading, and Tackle Reading helps us do that.
That's a little bit of a hell yeah. But that moment that we had with Harrison Phillips was amazing, because the days that followed that, my kids have never read more. They loved it. Well, he's in the NFL. He's in the NFL. He plays football. I want to play football. I got to do it. And I was like, yeah, you do. But I guess my question, going deeper than that, what do we do to keep kids that involved in reading? Because, you know, it's one thing to be inspired in the moment. How do we keep that spark lit for them?
So I find that we have to always be motivating and exciting kids. So, you know, we think about the most boring book on the planet that happens to be in a curriculum that we have to teach, you know, and it could be about a wagon wheel, or, you know, it can be about simple machines, whatever. But how am I going to make this relevant? How am I going to bring this book to life? What can I provide to the kids in real life, either through a real life virtual field trip, going somewhere, having a guest speaker? Like, I always think about something that's going to make the book more meaningful. So when we did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I brought in a chocolatier to speak about their job. And then we actually created our own candy, you know, and did a whole campaign around that. Whatever it is that's getting them hooked. I absolutely believe that the reason the sports and the athletes are working so well in one capacity is a lot of reluctant readers who happen to be boys and happen to fall behind their peers in reading, like sports. And that is a motivator. But the problem is kids don't not like reading because, you know, it's not a fun thing to do or it's not cool. Most kids that don't like to read plain can't read. It's too hard for them. And nobody wants to do anything that's hard or challenging. So if we can take the motivational side of the athlete's message, if we can pair that, you know, with real life fun, real life experiments, real life expectations, and then provide our kids with the tools that they need to become independent readers, everything comes together. So we hook them first, then keep them engaged while we're teaching them to be a lifelong reader and learner.
That's absolutely incredible that you said that reading can't be, in so many words, reading can't be taught in isolation. And it shouldn't be taught in isolation. I think of my reading experiences as an adult. I rarely read a book, especially like some kind of instructional manual or, you know, some kind of informational book, just because I was told to.
Right.
And we expect our children to do that in schools, which is really unfortunate, I think. We were talking before I started recording, and Josh and I, Josh, I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you, but if there's one area that as an educator I feel a little bit inadequate in, it's reading instruction. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Josh kind of feels the same way. One, where do you think that feeling of inadequacy might come from for educators? And then two, what's a quick pep talk that I can sit behind my reading table and tell myself before my red and blue and green groups come to me? You know, like if I wanted to look in a mirror and tell myself, you got this, what would I think?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I love how you set this up so perfectly, because it is true. Like, I will say teaching reading is the most complex subject. And unfortunately, it often has the least amount of support for teachers. And reading is a developmental journey. So you learn like, oh, I teach second grade and this is my second grade reading curriculum. But then where's the conversation of the child in your class that is on a kindergarten level or is an English language learner or happens to be a gifted reader and needs to be in fifth grade text and they're also sitting in your class? You know, where is that support? And so many times I feel like teachers, and it's not by any fault of our own, it's oftentimes what's put on top of us, is, you know, teachers want to do what's absolutely best for their kids. But unfortunately, there's so many factors or red tape sometimes that prevents us from really doing what's great for kids. And what's great for kids is knowing exactly where they are in their reading journey and meeting them at their reading journey, period. And we meet them by providing them with a book that hooks them, that they're interested in and that they can read, not something they're interested in that is over their head, and not something they're interested in that they can read every day easy. I do not believe that children learn to read just by being exposed to books. That's not the case. We want to expose kids to books. We want to get books in their hands. We want kids to choose them. But children don't miraculously learn to read just by holding a book. Children learn to read by holding a book that they love, that the teacher walks them through and teaches them how to not only read the words on the page, but think about the words on the page and think about what that text means. So I always like to tell teachers when they're getting behind that table is honestly, as a teacher, you really have 3,000 other jobs. I mean, we know we're counselors, we know we're doctors, we know we're nurses, we know we're parents, but also we're actors, actresses, we're models. We're modeling thinking, we're modeling our book, we're acting that it's the best book in the whole wide world when it's not. And we are acting like we don't really know how to be great readers when we do. And so when you all think about modeling and being an actor, you're on stage. Like, this is your chance to get the kids to engage with you. And the best thing to do is to think about how that topic in that book matches that child's life, existence, past or future. Background knowledge, unfortunately, is not often included in instructional practice, and we actually cannot comprehend with satisfactory elements if we don't understand the background knowledge of a text, fiction or nonfiction. So even if we just start with that, what our kids know about a topic, what we know, that's going to open up the conversation for engagement, which is going to lead to a better reading instruction.
Man, I love everything you're saying. I have so many questions just brewing. I've got a kindergartner, or he's going to be in kindergarten this summer or the fall. But I guess my question is, I listen to different podcasts and I hear some things about whole language and I hear things about phonics. I don't know how to best help him because I don't teach kindergarten or first grade or second. I mean, I'm up there in fifth grade. Right. What can parents do to best help their young kids become amazing readers that comprehend, that love? I guess that's what I want, is my son, my daughter to love reading. What can I do as a parent?
Well, first of all, when a child sees a parent reading and excited about reading, that's half of the battle. So, you know, I grew up, my dad read the newspaper every morning. My dad took us to the library. My mom's an elementary school teacher and was always doing story time, you know, and read to us before he went to sleep. But the actual, like, going to the bookstore, that was my dad. You know, going to the library, that was my dad. My mom was the one that always gave us books for our birthday, Christmas, you know, Easter basket, whatever it was. And so I could tell that reading in my family was important because everybody was doing it. And if you weren't reading in my family, you were missing out. Like, this is what we were doing. So number one, the modeling is a big, big piece. And, you know, you love it, they'll love it. And to me, it's reading anything. It's reading the newspaper, the magazines, it's reading children's books, it's reading novels, it's reading online today, reading the news, whatever it may be. Reading is reading. And reading is a life skill. So pointing out to our kids when we're out at a restaurant, reading the menu, reading signs, going to the grocery store and reading the cereal labels, whatever it is, you're exposing kids to print. And I love what you said about listening to a variety of, research-based reasons for how to teach reading. And unfortunately, there's always going to be a war, in a sense, in every subject. What's best now? What's best here? And the thing is, the research actually doesn't change. New terminology is said, like right now, a lot of us hear a lot about science of reading versus maybe whole language versus phonics, all of these things. Please know that there are 5 pillars of reading that have existed in reading research from the very beginning, and that every child at every level, including our little ones that are 2, 3, 4 years old, can do. So phonological awareness, always listening to our parents, reading to us, listening to rhyme, listening to how language sounds. Phonics is actually the rhyme family, spelling and writing them. Kids love to say, how do you spell this? How do you spell cat? Now, how do you spell that? How do you spell cat? There you go. Vocabulary, how we speak to our children, what words we're using to increase their vocabulary. Fluency, of course, hearing you read and reading smoothly is going to show me how to be a great reader. And then the ultimate goal of reading is comprehension. So what is this book about? How does this book relate to me? What does this book make me think about? And can I tell you this story in my own words? Those 5 components, those 5 pillars of reading are what are essential at any grade level, any age level, to help a child become an independent reader.
That's so rich. That's so rich that reading is a science, and those 5 pillars are it. And if you master those, then you'll be successful. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. What has been the big impact that this pandemic has had on reading across the country in your expert view? And then how can we, as educators, as parents, as community members, kind of help schools and communities get out of that, whatever the pandemic did to reading?
Well, so here's the thing. Before the pandemic, we had a problem with literacy in America. So before the pandemic, 34% of 9-year-olds in America were reading on grade level. That percentage drops to 22% if you're only working with low-income areas and low-income schools. So already we knew that there was something going on. Then we all, out of nowhere, that no one could predict, are now faced with a pandemic that in many cases closed schools for the entire year. And while some were physically closed for 2 and 3 weeks, then they slowly reopened to do virtual and remote hybrid. We all know what went on. But the children who were in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, where they are learning the foundations of reading, which is best taught through hands-on work, through manipulatives, through real books in your hand, through one-on-one with your teacher, not listening to your whole group reading, truly one-on-one instruction. And those little pieces were taken away with virtual instruction. I have seen teachers this year teaching virtually. I have coached teachers teaching virtually. Everybody did what they had to do, and everybody did it exceptionally well, being that there's absolutely no preparation for teaching in a global pandemic. However, despite everything that everybody did, developmentally for a child, the environment was not created to teach young readers. And our children are being passed on to the next grade level, because let's face it, we can't retain thousands of children. We send them on. But we need to send them on understanding that there is still work that needs to be done, and we do need to meet them where they are. And we need to start there. Just because we moved them on and we're jumping with this information doesn't mean they're going to get it. And see, that's the thing about reading, is it's like that myth that if I give a child a harder book to read, they'll master it. You know, it's like when you tell a parent, well, at school, you know, they're reading this particular level. And then they're like, well, that's interesting because at home they read this novel to me perfectly. And you're like, really? Let's talk about that further. Are you reading it to them? Are you reading it with them? Are they reading it silently on their own and you really don't know if they're reading? Because there's so many factors that we have to figure out. And a child, once a child can read successfully, they can read anything, they can pick up anything and read it, but we have to get them to that place. And so just because we're moving kids forward next year doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be ready to go just because they're moved forward. We do need to supply them with the tools and the information that they need. One big thing is just for everything that you all are talking about and doing is modeling and getting kids excited about reading, getting enough books that match interests, that match culture, that match ethnicity, that match ourselves and our friends and our classmates. And truly, when an organization or a company always says, like, how can I help? You know, what can I do? You can always donate books. You can always help buy more books, and you can always help bring more guest readers and more tutors into a school. Teachers need materials and teachers need more people. And when we have those things at our disposal, that's really when we can make the greatest difference and the greatest impact in a child's reading journey.
That was something I struggled with early as a teacher, was kind of my classroom library. The library was right across the hall from me, so I didn't feel like I needed one, so I got rid of books. And I've been working since my second year to build that back up, because I realize they need to see books in our classroom. They need to see me as a reader, and I practice that now. Something I've struggled with lately is the whole class novel, or letting kids choose. And so I'm curious where you stand on that, because I've gone back and forth, because I feel like when I teach a whole class novel, I have deep conversations with the class, but I also know at the same time I'm missing a pocket of kids because they're not invested in this book.
Right.
So where's the balance to that?
So, you know, I look at our instructional day and I understand, because I've been there. I know I have to teach math. I know I have to teach science. I know I have to teach social studies, where I just want to teach reading all day long and incorporate those when I can. And so when I think about our planning, you know, I think like, do the kids have an opportunity to have a read aloud experience, which is perhaps you're reading a novel to them. And then, of course, the shared reading experience where they all have the novel in front of them. You know, they're learning the particular standards or elements or, you know, character traits, whatever you want to teach from it. And where is that balance, right? So how many experiences a day do they get in this particular reading? I have found that when we can introduce the novel as a whole class, almost as just like a snapshot of the novel, like I'm hooking them, we're doing chapter 1 together, maybe chapter 1 and 2, and that's it. Because we're going to see then, I've set the stage, I've introduced the characters, I've introduced the theme, I've taught what I wanted to taught, I provided background information, I'm showing the kids how this is related. Which kids really do want to continue to read that book? And which kids are ready to read something else? I don't like for a class novel study to take 30 days to finish this particular book. Because what other text have I had my kids have experience with for 30 days? They didn't. They only had this one. So when I think about a whole class novel, I like to think about is like how to introduce the book, how to get them hooked. I always say like 2 days to 6 days to get that introduction. Then if you have a group of kids that want to continue, that can become a book club of those kids reading it with your guidance. And then the other children can choose another title for their book club. So essentially you've chosen a good amount of books that either represent a particular theme or a particular level or whatever it may be, but children are moving toward what is of interest to them. So even if you just wanted to choose 3 novels, introduce them as a class, and then the kids get to pick which one they want to continue with, then you've done both to get them excited about that reading.
I love the power of self-direction in reading and self-direction in learning and giving the kids that choice and having them choose what's engaging, not just to them, but to their peers. And then you get the peers involved in reading and have you read to page 75 yet? No, I'm just on page 63. Well, I better hurry up and get to page 75 so we can have those talks. And that excitement then it's like self-sustaining, you know? So I think that's so huge, giving the class the power to pick books that they want to read. You are busy. You're an author. You're a consultant. You do so much. How do you stay so inspired? Like I've talked to you on the phone before, and you have this amazing charismatic energy. How do you stay on top of that? How do you keep that coming every day?
I feel like I can ask that exact same question to both of you, but thank you. I mean, okay, so I was the child that when I was 4 years old, I was playing school, and when I would go to school all day long, and I would come home and play school. And for my birthday, I asked for a gift certificate to the teacher store every year. I had a lesson plan book. I wanted a chalkboard, and then when chalkboards were outdated, I wanted a whiteboard. I wanted a podium. My uncle built a podium for me. So like, I am the child that was playing school all day. So we kind of joke like, you know, I left the classroom and went into, you know, coaching at the district level, and now I consult. But honestly, I almost kind of retired because I really have been teaching since I was 5 years old. And I was a pretty hardcore teacher as a 5-year-old. I actually started my first tutoring business at age 9. At age 9, I decided I was going to teach 5-year-olds in the neighborhood to read. And I put up flyers, and I had parents pay me. I don't know who would do that today, but parents paid me, the 9-year-old, to teach their kids the letters and the sounds and rhyme, the same things we would do today. So to me, I get excited by creating something that is making somebody else excited. You know, I feel like if I'm working with children and they don't enjoy learning, then I need to like step up my game. If I'm working with a teacher who hates teaching reading, I need to step up my game. So my work, like my inspiration, comes from the people that I have the opportunity to either support or collaborate with. That's what keeps me moving forward and saying like, oh, I gotta now work on this, or I gotta create this or something else. But you know, to me, I still tell people, I feel like I'm still a teacher. I just feel like I'm a teacher of a much larger classroom.
Yeah, that's how we all want to be, right? Is that we reach beyond the classroom. We take our students, we reach. I love that. And to know that you've been in education from such a young age, and now you are reaching who you want to. I mean, you're changing me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That means I did something right for a minute.
Yeah, so I thank you for that. I thank you for the opportunity that I've had to get to know you, for my students to broaden their reading with Harrison and tackle reading. You know, we always ask the question at the end, and I want to know who's singing. I know that Kathryn, you were all state, so you know this way with What the World Needs Now. What the world needs now
is love, sweet love.
There you go. There you go. Oh, beautiful. You still have it. You still have it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Kathryn, what does the world need now? Besides great readers, besides amazing reading instruction, what does the world need?
You know, the world needs to embrace kindness and actually thank teachers. And actually, I kind of feel like the whole world would benefit by a really good story time. I feel like, books and literature can teach us so much. And sometimes there's some children's books that I just want to hand to adults and say, perhaps you missed this lesson on empathy and kindness and, integrity and making an impact. So if we could actually all come together for a story time that teaches a life lesson, I really do think a lot would happen.
I love the story time. I love the story time. I have tears in my eyes. I think that is just the most magnificent answer right now.
Right? Tom, as she was talking about that, we in Omaha, we have Jazz on the Green happening last week. What would Jazz on the Green look like if instead of jazz music, it was a story time where people gathered and listened to some awesome stories. And some great stories about like being a good person, right? About loving others and exactly what you've been telling us about.
I would love it. I would totally come.
That would be amazing. Oh, you would fly to Omaha? We would love it. Oh my gosh.
I would love it. I've never been to Omaha.
Oh, well, we have to get you here. That would be amazing. Story time on the green.
Done.
Hey, before we let you go, I do want to have you talk just for a second about a touchdown in reading. I expressed earlier how I felt kind of inadequate as an educator, as a reading educator, and I have this book, and it is absolutely chock full of just take it and use it, reading strategies, reading activities. So if you just want to talk a little bit about that, that would be amazing.
Well, I love that you have that prop. Thank you so much. It truly is, it's a how-to guide. I mean, I get the opportunity to work in schools, and I'm primarily in failing schools. I usually get the phone call from a failing elementary school in reading, and that's when I come in. And what I have found is, you can attend PD all day, great, I know, whatever, and you can have a book study, okay? But what I have noticed that makes the biggest difference is side-by-side coaching. I work one-on-one with teachers. I co-teach with them. I model lessons with them. I answer all their questions, questions that you don't feel comfortable asking your reading specialist or your principal because they're your bosses. But Kathryn, really, she has actually nothing to do with your performance, your, professional growth, whatever. She literally is only there to help you become a better teacher in reading. And that's what I love to do. But unfortunately, I don't get to be everywhere that I want to be. And so I have taken the tips and the lessons and the results and the activities and the things that I've seen get kids excited, the things that I've seen get teachers excited. And I have put them in this one resource, Touchdown in Reading, an educator's guide, literally, it's a how-to guide to literacy instruction. So if I haven't been able to be at your school, this hopefully can help you until either I get to visit your school or maybe you never have to have me at your school because the book is working. But that's why I did it, just to make sure that everybody feels like they get something that's going to help them become a better reading teacher.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to use it this year. Kathryn, thank you so much for taking your time and helping Josh and I understand the complex beast that is reading and telling us what the world needs now.
Oh my gosh, thank you all so much for having me. You are amazing. And please let me know when I can put Omaha on my calendar.
Hey, thank you so much to our followers that have stuck with us for the last 8 months. We are so appreciative of everything that you have helped us to bring to you. We talk to a lot of educators about taking care of yourselves mentally and physically. Tom and I are going to do the same thing.
So for the month of July, there won't be any more new What the World Needs Now. We'll come back to you with some fresh guests, some fresh ideas in August, and we look forward to sharing with you in August what the world needs now.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, Kathryn Starke.
We hope that as you head out, you remember that the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication is exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for everything you do. Have a good one.